Hi, I'm Marijke Kylstra, and I'm a redistricting coordinator at Count. Community mapping is one of the best ways you can get involved in the redistricting process. And don't worry, community mapping doesn't mean drawing district lines. It's much simpler than that. Community mapping means defining your community on a map to help prevent your community from being split up or cracked during the redistricting process. When your community is split into 2 or more districts, it affects your access to resources and representation. So it's very important to know where communities are to ensure that they're kept together. The census data used to redistrict doesn't tell us your community's needs, concerns, histories, and strengths. You are the experts on who is in your community, what your community needs, and where your community is. So taking 15 minutes to draw a community map can help show our legislators where our communities are and why they should be kept together. So let's draw a community map. So when you click on the Count Representable link, it will take you to this page. So this first page tells you a bit about how redistricting works in your state. You can also click on this link under the map on the right side of the screen to look at other maps that have been drawn in your state, and this might help you start thinking about what you want to include when you draw your map. So you can look at this information, and once you're done learning about the process and you feel ready to get started, you can go ahead and scroll to the bottom of the screen and hit Get Started. So you'll pull up this screen. You're going to have to make an account. You just enter your email, create a password. That's just to make sure you're a real person. It's going to allow you to come back and make more maps or download your map if you want to in the future. I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in here. All right, so this next page will ask you for your name and address. This information will be kept private. It's just needed to confirm that you're a real person. So once you've filled that out, once that is all filled out, you can just go ahead and hit Next. So this next page will explain what a community of interest is. So this can really help you think about what and who you want to include in your testimony and map and what makes your community unique. All right, so this next section is the testimony component. In this next section, you can kind of read through the prompts and examples to get an idea of what you want to say about your community. But again, make sure to make it your own. Your community could look nothing like these examples. So write as much or as little for each prompt as you'd like. If you want to include specific park names or your church names, things like that, that really helps ground your community in reality. And if you click on these titles, you can see these questions as kind of prompts of questions to answer when you're thinking about this. So you can talk about community activities, cultural, historical interests, economic and environmental interests, communities' needs and concerns. And then there are tags at the bottom that you can include to tag your community if anything is particularly relevant, like education, diversity, affordable. You can also push plus here and choose all these other things. There's a lot of options. And then you can include anything that's left out down here in this box. So to answer these, you're just going to click on one of these blue boxes and type something in. I'm just going to put test right now, but you do have to answer at least one of these questions. And try and take your time with this because it can really help you actually draw your map afterwards. All of this information will be unique to you and your community, and that's why it's so important and impactful for you to participate in the redistricting process in this way. Only your community is the expert on your community. Census data just doesn't tell us what's important to you or what your community's needs and strengths are. All right, so when you are done with that, click Next. Then you're going to name your community. So this will be public, so don't use your name or address. It's better to use something like your town, your neighborhood, or a local landmark to name your community. So I would name mine Kirkwood Neighborhood Community because I'm drawing one, that's the name of my neighborhood. All right, so I'm going to hit Next. So this is the page where you will draw your map. So a search bar will appear to help you start, and just type in the address of a location in your community. It could be your home. It could be anywhere that's very central to your community to zoom in on that area on the map. So I'm going to pull mine up, and it's going to zoom me in. There we go. So at any time while you're making your map, you can click on this address bar at the top of the screen. to search for a specific location. If you want to find your grocery store, your hospital, or your church, or whatever you want to look for, or your school or something, you can type it in here. All right, so when you move your mouse around the page, and I'm zooming out here, you can see the blocks darken as I put my mouse over them. And that just means that they're going to be selected. So if I click on one, that means I'm including it in my community. And if you click it, that means it's included. If you click it again, that means it's removed. So another thing, if you want to switch to smaller units, there's this button in the bottom left corner to use smaller units. It brings up this this pop-up that tells you kind of a warning about this. Your current selection will be erased. So make sure if you decide to switch to smaller units, you do it at the beginning of your mapping. So I live in a very urban area, so this makes the units very tiny, and it's kind of annoying for me. So I'm going to use larger units. So while you're making your map, don't get hung up on district lines or boundaries like county lines and the end of your city or town. Your community may cross districts and boundaries, and that's important to see. Just focus on where your community is and think back to the prompts on the previous steps. So here I am. This is my neighborhood. I'm going to click on this one because I want to include it. There's some important churches over here that people go to in my community. There's a park here that I frequently go to. I'm going to include, there's a Kroger right here that I usually get groceries at. I'm going to go over here. Let's see what else. I could include where I get medical care, which is actually more over here. Let's see, I'm going to pull it over this way. I'm going to include where I work, which is down this way. And I also go to the Kroger there sometimes. And yeah, this kind of is a general idea of my community. I've thought about kind of, places of worship in the area. I've thought about where I actually get my groceries. It really depends on you, and also the size of your community can really depend. A lot of people, they access resources in different counties, especially if you live in a rural area. So don't feel bad if your map is huge and crosses multiple borders like county and district borders. So I feel pretty good about this. This has where I go to work, where I play, where I go to the grocery store, where I access my essential resources. One thing to note is that your map must be contiguous, which means all sections have to be connected. So if you select a geographically separate block, a warning sign will pop up letting you know that your map contains gaps. You may be part of many geographically separate communities, so you can choose to connect the sections or do the process again and draw another map entirely. So once you have done making your map, you feel good about it, you're going to go and click Save. And this next page will have you agree to the privacy and terms of use. Again, your name and address will be kept private, but your map and testimony are publicly visible. So just click here to make sure that you agree to the terms of use. Click that you are not a robot if you're not a robot, and then you hit submit. It takes a second. Congratulations, yay. All right, so you get this fun little congratulations window, and now you're actually able to see the map that you drew and your testimony. So this is great. We've submitted our maps. Now you can export your map in different ways. PDF will show your map and the testimony you gave. GeoJSON is a more technical file type that can be used to draw districts and other applications. So I'm going to X out of here. All right, so as you notice, there are these three layers on top, and the data layers feature is actually available. That'll allow you to see your map over with some additional layers added, your state house districts, your school districts, and you can kind of see how your neighborhood, if your neighborhood is already split, kind of what districts you're in, what does it look like right now. As you can see, my community is split between DeKalb and Fulton counties. So you can see that. This is just interesting to look at. Then election data and demographics information are not available yet, but you can see the population of the community you drew. Now that you've finished your map, please encourage others to map their communities as well.